Doctor and Call comes to you compliments Hills and Valley Pharmacy and the Spice Isle Imaging Center. Good evening once again, and welcome to Doctor and Call. It's been a while since we've had a live program. Or did we have a live program last week? No, I don't think so.
Like 3 weeks?
No, yeah, it's about 3 weeks, yes. Of course, interruptions from Carnival and all of that. But this evening we're back and we're talking about violence. In fact, tonight will be the first in a series of programs we will be doing on the issue of violence here in Grenada. Dr. Nixon's with us. For a moment I thought I lost her there, but no, she's here, and she's not going anywhere until I say, yes, Doc, you can't go anywhere until I say you can leave. So, of course, we welcome our viewers on GBN Television as always, and of course, our listeners on our YouTube channel and those on K105 FM. Again, we do apologize for our issues with Facebook. Hopefully that should be up and running again very soon. So it's a good time to welcome Doc. Doc, good evening and welcome. I hope you had a happy carnival season.
Mm-hmm. I like jabs. There were 50 million jab.
You like jab?
Yes. So we should talk a little about carnival before, because we had a lot of concerns, and I think when we speak about the last concern, we can segue into the topic we want to start delving into. I can tell people, I know there are a lot of people who don't believe in jab. Jab is very Grenadian. What I saw on Monday morning, I would be angry with myself if I didn't go to Juvie. And I went to Juvie like about 8 o'clock. That's to tell you how much I really wanted to. I had a feeling I was going to miss something. And I really hope that everybody has emerged from this, not so angry anymore, those who vex that we have in Carnival and jab and all the kind of things I saw otherwise. But kind of proud that we had a quiet carnival, and most people who are here enjoy themselves in ways they wanted and ways more than they wanted. Because I saw a young lady from Trinidad last night who was expressing how happy she was she came to Grenada Carnival. It was her first time, and she read over the jabism of Grenada Carnival. Because she mentioned, and it came to my mind that even if you went to a regular carnival party or on the street, because of the jab music, there was this thing that people were just really into it and that vibe that it had. So, I just hope everybody enjoyed themselves. But, Carnival has its issues, good and bad. I think Carnival's economic outcome is probably what is the greatest for the whole. I went into town on Juvie morning, I can tell you, and I reached some people already going home, right? And I didn't see everything. I stayed on the carnage by Otway House. I didn't go very far. Mm-hmm. And I know I saw at least 20,000 people in town. No, at least. Okay.
20,000 people.
So, 20,000 people. Everybody in their own little world and enjoying the free mass, which is what it was. Mm-hmm. Okay? But a lot of people who are visitors, and I've spoken to a lot of them, who are really glad they came to Grenada. and who still enjoy the safety, and that's when the violence thing is going to come, but not yet, right? Who still enjoy the safety of coming to a place where they don't feel they won't get pickpocketed or knifed, or people won't come and harass you, want to touch you up and all the rest of it. Okay? Most of the people, probably, if not all, most of the people who came to Grenada say they're coming back. So we have 50th anniversary of independence in January. I heard all the Grenadians that I know say they're coming down from the extra here of the diaspora. They're coming back, foreign. Mm-hmm. They're coming. And I heard a lot of visitors say they'd like to come, but they certainly coming back. So next year, someone's going to have to leave because Grenada is going to sink.
Really?
Trust me, the amount of people to come. All right? So I am hoping that from a financial, and that will spill off into other good for the economy as a whole, and for people as individuals, because people did invest. Look at people who sell food, people involved in different parts of the carnival celebration. It's a one-off time every year to make a little money, and of course the promoters, I'm sure they did, because them kind of fees are here, because I don't go to the party, okay? Can't afford it, right? But people want to entertain themselves, they save their money and they go, they borrow, and however they get to go, they went, right? So I think financially it will have worked out relatively well for most of the people who looked at it as an opportunity for financial investment. However, I always think about the challenges that come, and whatever happens, whatever challenges exist, can become public health problems. Mm-hmm. And public health, that arm of health that deals with well-being and safety, right? Physical wellness, mental wellness, safety, physical safety, etc., right? And care in general of the population, of large groups of people. In this case, I want to talk about the 110,000 in between here, Carriacou and Petit Martinique. So, you know what the temperature was?
The temperature, that's when... No, I'm not sure. Actually, I don't know, because I was at home actually just relaxing and enjoying television.
But that's because you get too old for carnival, but I understand that.
Yeah, I have no problem with that at all.
Like us.
And I do enjoy it, because I never knew being old was such a wonderful thing.
Exactly. You have to look at the good things. But seriously, so I was very concerned about the exposure to extremes and dehydration and all other things. Especially, I got caught. You'll never believe. I got caught 2 cars away from me crossing into my office with Children's Carnival. 2 in front of me obstructed me from driving on the street that would take me into my park. And I got to watch a kiddies carnival. And the foremost thing in my mind were children getting enough flu. We've talked about that. And I really hope they did. I have not heard of any incidents, but I really hope they did. For safety, there are a lot of adults taking care of our children. And remember, we keep saying that we have to protect our children. They're very, 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 very valuable to us, but they're not to us or somebody else. It doesn't matter. They're all our children. So, and they seem to have had a lot of fun. So I was worried about the exposure to the sun. In relation to the adults, I was concerned about this extreme alcohol consumption and what happens as a result of that. The potential for abuse, the potential for falling and it's in your head, and the potential for not remembering where you put your money, for being robbed, for being sexually abused, for being physically abused, etc. I was very concerned for that. I have not heard of any major incidents, but it's something we always have to look for. We have to look out for. Overspending. When I talk about the lots of party was $800 and $500, and while there were nice places to be, school morning is 2 weeks from now. So we have to terminate. Because the people who participate in Carnival intensely still within the reproductive age, and they have relatively young children. We still have to worry about our children having their uniforms and their books and all the rest. So what would that bring us? Deprivation of our children, not having what they require. As a result, they have their own emotional and psychological challenges. There's no need to go to school on September morning without your books. There's no need, everybody wants to have a new book bag and whatever it is. It's not, I don't think it's absolutely necessary, but it's part of the culture that we it's part of the culture that we're dealing with. It's part of the culture that we're dealing with. So, parents need to indulge their children a little, make sure that they feel happy to get back to school. And I really hope that we save money, because we still have to pay rent, we still have to pay mortgage on our houses, on our cars, we still have to buy bus fees, we still have to pay for water, electricity, and all the things that never play carnival, and to just wait and embarrass us. Either. We don't want anybody getting depression or anxiety or the worst outcome for depression. Right, so I hope that our population has really focused on what is the priority, despite having fun for fun. Right, those are the things. Overspending, of course, and just being broke and not able to do things you need to do. Right, that's an area that always I'm very concerning, and I think it comes in as an important public health component of the outcomes or the side effects of carnival. You have to be cognizant of the things. You have to be aware of the things that make it after the fact not have gone well. Okay, that's what I really hope that people can transition safely, comfortably, and especially their children. I hope we haven't left our children alone and left them at risk, right? Because those are the things we also have to concern. Are my children safe? Am I going to leave my two little children in the house and at risk of burning down the house? Or for somebody coming or somebody neighbor coming and abuse them, male, female, it doesn't really matter, physically, emotionally, sexually, whatever it is. We have to make sure that those things are taken care of before we go outside and party. Party by all means, but make sure that you put your ducks in a row. So I hope we haven't had those things. And then people with chronic illnesses, people with even, we have a younger population having diabetes and hypertension, and all people, older people, more mature people, 60s, 70s, who want to play carnival, to each his own. I don't have a problem with that. I hope you haven't decided not to take your diabetes medication, because you want to drink. Or because you want to not to take your blood pressure medication because you want to drink, because you don't feel good, you're having so much fun you don't remember. Okay, I could understand the exercise being put off if you're going to party every day, but your medications and your diet, and that's the other thing. If we have diabetes and we are consuming too much alcohol, we are taking on too much food. Okay, so because alcohol is, what they make alcohol from? Sugar, right? So think about it. So I'm going to ask you to get back on your routine as quickly as you can, so we don't. The other thing, there has been a lot of respiratory illnesses, and we know we have the Carnival. I don't know what they should call this one. I don't name for this flu that they have, because I've seen a few people. They have had a substantial amount of people. Not so much COVID as much as flu, because they have been testing, right? But it probably proliferate, because 20,000 people should not fit on the wall for any one day. On the carnage.
Doc, I've been listening and some of the comments, and I saw a bit of it on social media and so. And I ask myself if it would make sense for our leaders to go to Parliament and make a law or pass a law that puts an age limit to children that attend these activities. Because I tell you, the ages of some children I see involved in that kind of festivity or activities.
In a big people party?
Yes, it is worrying. It is very, very worrying. I don't know how they would decide what age it should be, but I think that would also speak to the responsibility of parents and their children. I hope somebody could think about this, because to me it's a very serious issue, and I cannot understand why a 3 or 4 year old or 5-year-old for that matter should be jumping up in jab with their parents whining and gyrating and carrying on. Now I don't have problems with adults doing what they want to do, that's a matter for them, but I don't believe that children should be subject to that kind of thing. I definitely not. People may disagree, but so be it. I don't believe that should happen.
And I appreciate that. It's unfortunately we've seen a lot of, I want to use the right words, substantial deterioration in our physical behaviors. I'm not going to say moral or any other, I'm just going to say physical behaviors. And it is obviously often not an environment for children. The police in particular had an ad that they had out at least a month before Carnival, asking you to ensure that your children are not exposed to adult entertainment, to adult places. So I don't know why I would take my 10-year-old to a party where big people are, the $500 party. Juve, there were a lot of kids in town, yes, and a lot of children who played Juve. I still think that Juve doesn't have as much debauchery as the other entertainment, and I refused to go to see because I was just very hurt by some of the things I saw at the Carnival last year. Again, I believe to each his own, right? But also to me, my own. I believe that it should be an environment where I can take my aged mother, my nanny, my grandchildren, my children, right? It must be a place. That's what Carnival represents. It represents a cultural exposure. And I don't have a problem if people choose during the Carnival season to have high physical exposure, but I think that should have its own environment where people who don't deserve to be there are not there. So I don't know how the government is going to work it out, but we need to keep Carnival as a community cultural event where everybody, right, have equal right to be exposed, to learn something, because that's what Carnival has been. I don't know if you ever played Mass. I played Mass as a child, but you played Mass that had a story. You saw it and you recognized what they were trying to portray. It's a portrayal of something cultural. We didn't have to ask often what people were portraying. I last year I went over the whole of my anatomy. My anatomy classes on medical school. I could dissect every single muscle that comes from your shoulder down to the back of your knee, right? Based on the exposure I saw. Again, to each his own, but I chose not to go because I really want a little more cultural, a little more cultural, not necessarily Grenadian culture, but something that the exposure made me think and made me appreciate. I like the colors, yes. I like to see people dress up nice, and the women put themselves together facially well. But I think there was a little too much exposure for what should be a national event.
Like I said, I don't have a problem with adults doing what they want, but I am very concerned about some of the ages of some of the children I see that parents have, and I don't think it's fair to the children that a parent should subject that
yeah,
children
because I think a lot of times there were lots of precocious exposure, really early, too early exposure for the children, the kind of stuff they know boundaries, because the behaviors I've seen of some of the adults that had profound sexual expressions is not anything that you should be exposing your children. Little children in particular too. So they don't know, and you see them gyrating and stuff because you think that's what it should be, and there's nothing wrong with them doing that if that's what they learn, unfortunately for them,
Yeah, but then sometimes when things happen we wonder why, and then we cry foul, and we fail to look back at some of the actions,
some of the behaviors
that led to that,
and that's what I'm saying. That's why I wanted us to have this discussion before we went into the issue of violence. And, we are going to have to take it on as a national debate and discussion. And We don't have to do what everybody else does, because carnival could be equally invigorating without so much exposure. It can be equally invigorating. Because Grenada has a vibe. People like to come to Grenada. Above all, people like the fact that they generally feel safe when they come to Grenada. Because the Grenadian people, we don't party every day, but when we go and we party intensely. Then we go home, bathe and sleep and go back to work in the morning. So if we can keep that vibe without exposing ourselves so much. One of the things I'm very concerned about is, apart from the hypertension and diabetes and the potential for strokes and heart attacks and becoming very, very ill because we haven't taken our medication, because we've drunk too much, we've eaten too much salty food, you name it, whatever. It's a whole issue of mental illness. Because one of the things that people do in order to be able to enjoy carnival is get rid of all their medications. So how can we acquire mental illness? We can or have manifestations of mental illness. One, if I am on a psychotropic drug, a medication that keeps me mentally stable, and I want to drink, I am taking on medication. Basically, that's the attitude of people. They don't understand. A lot of us don't understand. We can have fun without drinking. Right? So, a gift story. I love to dance. I love to go. I go to party. And I go to, you have a party and I go on the floor and I dance forever. 4 hours I'm on the floor dancing because I like to dance. I like music. I like to really enjoy myself. And one Sunday I'm home and a guy said, Sonia, why don't you come down? Come and hang out with us. I said, what? He said, no, you could come down. He had this lovely place like Pier 57, right? Right on the rocks in front of this, absolutely beautiful. And I said, come and do what? He said, you could come down and can have a drink with us. And I said, I don't drink. He said, you don't drink? I said, no, I don't. So he said, so when I see you dancing and enjoying yourself in party, you're not drunk? I said, mm-mm. I might be drunk with the music, right? But I'm just enjoying myself. And when I'm finished, I take my keys, get into my car, and go home. If you can get to that point, fine. But like I say again, to each his own. That's just me. Will I go to a set? Maybe I will. But I'm not going to be drunk. I don't have to desist what is my normal routine in order to be able to have fun. And those are the things we're going to have to speak to our population about. You can do the things that make you happy without putting yourself at risk for illness. Mental illness, for me, is one of the challenges. You already have a lot of problems. And in Grenada and everywhere, COVID has shown us the intensity of mental illness that we're coping with globally. And so if people decide who are taking it, I'm not taking this, I want to drink or I want to go out and I don't want to, this thing makes me sleepy at times and all the rest. We're going to have to figure out how we're going to deal with that. We're going to have to figure out how we're going to deal with that. And we're going to have to remind people, and those of us who take care of people with mental illness are going to have to say to them, hey, you're going to have to take care, can take choices that are not healthy. You know? You can't. So.
Right, definitely. So, as you said, I trust that people, who have the chronic conditions did not fail in doing what they were supposed to do, despite the celebration and stuff like that, and that now they're not
incorporated society as is required. Go back to the land or whether it's here or abroad. I just hope that people can go back and be well.
Yes, indeed. So I think we can move on. I wanted, well, of course, we are talking, we're starting our series on the whole issue of violence, and I wanted to share a little something that I think is very important that people understand, when we speak of violence. And the World Health Organization, they do have quite a bit of material on violence and health. In fact, there's a published article on preventing violence, and I want to just share a little bit of it. It has to do with because there are different types of violence, and I just want to share a little bit on some of the definitions. So here it goes, and this is from the World Health Organization. This guide follows the definition of violence put forward in the World Report on Violence and Health, namely, the intentional use of physical force or power threatened or actual against oneself, another person, or against a group or community that either results in or has a high likelihood of resulting in injury, death, psychological harm, maldevelopment, or deprivation. So that's the World Health, or that's the definition as put forward in the World Report on Violence and Health. Now, within this general definition, the report further divides violence into 3 subtypes according to the context in which it is committed. And we have self-directed violence, interpersonal violence, collective violence. And Doc, I'll stop here because I know you would, go into some details on all of this, and I'll just, fit in between with some of the information provided by the World Health Organization. And folks, let me just say this, and Doc always speaks about your smartphone that you can use to get information. And what I just shared with you, it's online. You can go on the World Health Organization site, and it's very easy to maneuver, and you would get information. Or you can just Google violence and health, and it would send you straight to a link that takes you to the, yes, definitely. So yeah, it's available. So Doc, let's start the conversation. In recent times, over the carnival season and just prior to that, there were a number of violent acts in Grenada which did raise serious concern among our people. So much so that I know one of the political organization, they had a forum on coming up with ways to address the situation. I know our government is also looking seriously at it. Our Prime Minister has spoken about it, and other groups within the country. It is of concern, and of course, I think we should do our part as well. We are doing our part in raising the awareness on the dangers of violence and folks, how it can affect your health, because violence and health, very, very, very serious issue. So Doc, go ahead.
Well, there's just so much you can say. That's why I think this has to be a series. This is not something you can deal in 1, 2, even 3 sittings, but we can put all the information together. So, the first thing we need to consider, and it comes in that definition, the intentional nature of violence. Okay? You have to make up your mind that you're going to hurt the person, whether it's on the spur of the moment, somebody pass and they step on your toe and you box them down, or you pull your knife and you thing them. I only experienced one incident of violence on Carnival Monday morning, which is aborted very quickly. And in speaking to the authorities, the peacekeepers in our country, I said, what are you guys most concerned about? Because I was also concerned from a public health standpoint. What are you worried about? Are you going to have another outbreak of COVID because of people's close? Because that's also the security forces. And they said, no, they just worried about violence. But they had a couple incidents. They had a couple events that one with 5,000 people and another 2,000 people that went across smoothly. And this is not only because of the security forces interventions, their awareness, of what the outcomes can be, and more so their interest in the well-being of the population. So they probably had extra extra strategies that are put in place? Are there more security? You know, do you screen at the door? What it is? But that's the end of the road. That's the end of the road, okay? Just before the event, just before the incident, that violent incident. Mm-hmm. And so, am I going there to this party because I know my boyfriend or a girl will be there? I'm going to beat her up. I'm going to strip her clothes and beat her. Okay? Is that why I'm going there? Or am I going to intention? Anybody ever ask me anything to tell them too bad? Because we forget that there's an oral part of it. There is spoken violence. We make oral threats. And that's one of the things that we forget. That is also violence. And I want to talk about that. And I want to talk about that a little down the road in the context of healthcare. Because too often we go to the hospital, to the health center, and cause the nurse and cause the doctor and cause everybody and, you know, push our way through. I want to see the doctor now. And sometimes it's reciprocated by the healthcare staff, right? But just the fact that somebody will just, if you said, excuse me, and they don't hear you bounce in, and they tell you things you don't even know about yourself, right? The way we speak, the spoken violent behavior towards other people. If you don't go somewhere and become violent in any way, you probably will not be engaged in violence. So on the back, how do we teach people to deal with incidences that can spur on violence? Okay? Is there dispute resolution? Might have problems. Are we teaching our children how to resolve simple issues? You know? You playing marble and John pick up your marble, or he drop your iPad, whatever you're playing with accidentally, right? What are you going to do? You're going to beat him up, or are you going to listen to him and understand that this was an accident? Granted, he might have fallen because there was water on the grass, on the floor. Do we intervene from that first responsibility? That first, how do I respond to violence? Is that where we're going to start? Or are we going to just make sure that police can interrupt potential violent situations? Now, that is not necessary. But maybe we need to start focusing on the challenges with violence. My heart broke when I woke up on Monday. Like I said, when see Jab came home by 11 o'clock. I stopped elsewhere coming from town, but and my heart broke when I saw that there was a killing. We've had, 16 murders in Grenada? That's the ultimate experience, ultimate manifestation of violence one against the other, of violent act towards another person. Are we going to sit back and try and figure out what's going on here? Why is it that these acts, and how are we going to mitigate, how are we going to avoid, how are we going to control people's behavior getting to that extreme point? That is what is important. That is what I see as important. People come to Grenada. Remember, say we had a lot of people come to Grenada because we don't have daily violence. We don't have home invasions. We come in, man, with machete and stuff to rob you. Do they thief? People thief, yes. They still thief, right? But that intentional desire to harm you, physically or otherwise, is that part of our culture? Maybe it's becoming, because everybody think they're right. What are we going to do about that? And that's the question I want Grenadans to start asking themselves. Because this is like tourism. This is everybody's business. Everybody has a responsibility to learn how to deal with the potential for becoming violent, how to be a peacemaker, how to be the one who says, it's all right, I'll lose this fight, just go on, right? Are we going to tell our children, box him down if he hits you first? Are we going to tell our kids, go to the teacher, go to the principal? Are we going to allow our children to carry arms? Are we going to believe that our children not carrying knives and all the rest of us? I hear one guy pull one knife that everybody's got a right on Monday morning. Are we going to show them that that is not absolutely necessary, and we need to live in a world of maybe I sound like Pollyanna, that's very perfect, but a world of tolerance, because that's one of our challenges. We don't tolerate any people. We don't like people who look different from us. We don't like people. We have issues with people who we think brighter than us, or who we think not as bright as us. We have issues with people who don't walk fast enough, who don't do this quick enough, who behave like them stupid. Do you understand? Our tolerance is so low, and it makes us branch out, and we cuss and we fist and we fight, okay? And we beat up and we get into trouble because we don't understand that people are different. My challenge is that how the hell are we going to deal with that thing of preventing, right? Apart from that, when you have, I think Grenada went into a state of emotional shock following that incident in the South on Monday, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah. Right?
Grenada went into a state of emotional shock. A man was found dead at the beach, and there's been a lot of talk. Everybody wants to know. And I don't think people at the end of the day, if we evaluate, I don't think people are really interested in the gossip. What they're interested in is the resolution. Who did this, right? Let them be dealt with. We want to see the end of it. But think about it. If you were a victim of violence, a man comes and he slashes your car tire, God forbid, right? It creates a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, right? It creates a lot of stress for you as a victim of violence. It creates a lot of disability. And the World Health Organization speaks of it, how we can't function if we have to confront ongoing intentional violence, and some even unintentional, except unintentional, somebody might tell you sorry and you'd understand. But when somebody plans to do you harm and ends up doing you harm, whether it's severe or mild, okay, that's not good. Okay, it makes you question yourself. And what if there's no way for you to get counseling and some form of support? What if you're misinterpreted or misjudged, which often happens, right? And I don't know about you, because people who don't know me will say a lot of things about me. And then when they meet me, they say, and I always thought you were this. I never realized that you were such an X person. I always thought you were such a, the B word and the X word, because that's what other people have perpetuated. We have to be very careful how we're going to mitigate the damage, especially the physical and emotional damage. Think about it. A child comes to live in the community, and he might be living with somebody who fosters him, who takes him on, right? But it's a child who's a slow learner. This is a child who comes from a poor place and might be living with a poor relative, right? And everybody starts teasing him and abusing him and saying he had to go for water in the house. All the children are there, but he had to go down the river for water, right? He had to go and tie the sheep in the morning. That's not good. That's not good. Okay? Where you'd say, oh, John there, let me make him work for the little food he gets in. All right? And he wears the hand-me-down clothes. Do you know what happens to John when he becomes an adult? He will have the tendency to be violent, because once he grows up and he realizes, I have the power, I can abuse people too. I can beat them up. I can do this. And John learned to fight at school because he's had to defend himself so much. And that isolates him. So there is a lot of layers on this onion as to what happens when we are experiencing this 2023, while we're focusing on mental health. I think we also need to focus on breaking the back of violence in Grenada. It is very important, because we're still the only people that don't have a lot of. You saw St. Vincent a month ago, yes, with the shooting of the 5 men. Well, I live in Jamaica. Jamaica is going to have 1,600 murders by the end of the year. How do you explain that? Okay, and everywhere else, the Bahamas, where they have drugs, where they have a lot of drug trade and stuff. So, how are we as Grenadians going to keep it away? How are we going to understand and regulate, right? Within ourselves and outside of ourselves, as a community, as a family, as a small community, as in a workplace, and in a bigger community, right? In a parish or the country, and above all, how are the policies that we develop, right, going to inform, right, the country's path to preventing violent behaviors? Because the truth is, we can't afford it. Let me tell you why we can't afford it. We don't have enough psychological services. We don't need any more children who are traumatized. We don't need anybody else who have one arm and one eye. We don't need that. Trust me, at the maximum level of their potential productivity, right? We don't need dead people and spending $10,000 for forensic investigation, okay? We don't need children losing their fathers and their mothers, right? We don't need people not being able to produce, to go to work and to be on. We don't need any of that. And we don't need any more for young men and women incarcerated. We don't need them jailed. We need them out there working, getting things done, building the roads, building the bridges, building the school, keeping the school, building the teachers, all the stuff that Grenada requires now. We talk about transformative change. We need everybody to be part of it, right? I got very fearful because I've lived in a place where there's a lot of violence. Because I hold Grenada very dear to my heart, not only because I'm Grenadian, but also because we still have that element of safety, which can easily be lost. Because when I heard some of the things that happen otherwise, it bothers me, okay? It bothers me a lot because are we heading down for where I lived in a community that was the place where you could leave your window open and go and sleep. And I can tell you, I go party and 4 o'clock in the morning, I walk in alone, I reach in the morning, I realize, shoot, I left my key in the car anyway, right? My grill is unlocked, and I go in, close the door, push the latch in the door, and go to bed. I wake up in the morning and I'm still safe. I wouldn't do that. I don't even drive in that place when I go anymore, okay? So we are going to figure out how are we going to preserve a Grenada that is safe from all forms of violence, okay, so that we can get ahead, so we can grow socially and economically as time goes by.
Definitely. So I also want to show, because I want people to understand, you know, and get a good feel of what we're talking about. Because if we have to address this problem and deal with it, get rid of it, we need to understand it, you know. And so I just want to share, because I mentioned earlier three subtypes of violence, and then the first one that I mentioned was what is referred to as self-directed violence, and that refers to violence in which the perpetrator and the victim are the same individual and is subdivided into self-abuse and suicide. All right, Doc, I think that is clear, and I think we understand that. So when we speak of the perpetrator, the person who is actually committing the act of violence is the same person. All right?
And we spoke about the little boy who was abused.
Yes.
Isolated, and his own warped, right? Severely affected psychological development, and not able to understand, not able to regulate, dealing with isolation, abuse, neglect, whatever, physical. And remember, they're both, right? I heard a guy yesterday giving a story of how he was sexually abused by a caregiver at the age of 7. His mother left and went, not in Grenada, his mother left and went away. And father went away first, but the whole economic situation where parents migrate and you have children who are grown up by themselves. There's a way they call them. Lord, I was reading the article this week. But here's this boy and his siblings living, and the caregiver, who was a girl who was considered the loose girl in the community, right? The loose girl in the community realized that he's the most vulnerable. He's 7 years old, right? And she will take special care of him. She bathe him and she powder him, and he feels special because other than that, the people who had been caring for him had not been so nice to him. It was a little bit of food beating him. And here is this girl, and he falls victim to her sexual prowess at 7. What do you think will happen? Is happening because in his mind, even his young mind, he knows that's not what he deserves. He knows that the love he gets must not come marry something else, right? He knows that the hugs and kisses he gets must not be trying to, approach him under the carpet, under the table, right? He knows that the love and care he gets, or the extra bun he gets, or the extra glass of milk he gets, must just because I just really like you and I want you to be happy, not because I want to have access to your pants. He doesn't understand that. He doesn't know how to express it. He doesn't know he can tell somebody this. He just doesn't know, right? And he grows up with that tendency to self-harm. We see it in girls. We see it in girls who are sexually abused. And I'll tell you what, and sexual abuse is probably the biggest way, one of the biggest ways that happens. Sexual abuse in children as early as months old, even they don't know, they don't understand, their brain is wired to tell them that this is not right. So the little babies who are sexually abused grow up with their challenges. And you see the depression, you see what we think is ADHD, but it's other more profound forms of mental illness. The depression in particular, the failure to learn, the social and emotional isolation, the aberrant, I want to say, the side of the normal sexual behaviors, right? Because they don't know who. The use of drugs early, and the fact that they're looking for that comfort, not understanding that the abuse and the physical violence and emotional and the verbal violence that has been directed to them has created so much challenges that they can't understand the goodness, the value, the diamond value of themselves. And so they get depressed and they do drugs. And they do all kind of behaviors that are risky, right? And end up having challenges and may harm themselves. You see them cutting as adolescents. You see them drinking early. You see them doing hard drugs. And here we don't have a whole lot of drugs that our children use, a lot of severe drugs. But you see them having, in the US, you watch it that every day. They're on Skid Row, for want of a better word, and they die from overdose because they're seeking that relief from the discomfort, that violence which they have been exposed has caused them. So that is part of the trouble, right? The risks that run as a result, that they expect, that they experience as a result of the of violence towards them, especially over prolonged periods.
Right, lovely. So the other one, which is interpersonal violence, refers to violence between individuals and is subdivided into family and intimate partner violence and community violence. And I think that one is probably the most common. The former category includes child maltreatment, intimate partner violence,
abuse, right?
And elder abuse, while community violence is broken down into acquaintance and stranger violence and includes youth violence, assault by strangers, violence related to property crimes, and violence in workplaces and other institutions.
So I think what we've done here is look at things that are a little more individual, put them in smaller packages as we see them. And the truth is, we probably can identify with that form of violence because, oh, that's what's happening with John. Oh, that's what Tony has done. Oh, Miss Mary, right? There has been a lot of talk about gender-based violence. And gender-based violence is often, as we watch it now, we have the Spotlight Initiative, right? Gender-based violence is often focusing on violence of male partners towards female partners. But it also speaks of violence from same-sex partners, between same-sex partners, and violence from female partners towards their male partners, right? We have very strong laws that protect women, since that was the most predominant form of thing. But gender-based violence, it has to do with one gender affecting another. The relationship is a gender-based, a sexually based relationship. Now, we think about the other forms that you mentioned. We look at gang violence in our youth. And sometimes it is a means of victimization. What you have a young boy who doesn't have strong parental and family relationships, who is for the love that he deserves. We talk about the same little boy, right? That end up living with women, godmother or whoever is in the community, right? And looking for love. And the people who run gangs realize that these people are vulnerable. They're at risk, right? And there's several risk factors I'm going to tell you about soon. And they get recruited very early, right? To the point where they lose their lives in trying to protect the people who have recruited them, or they're maimed, or whatever it is. And there's just so many young people. I remember the state of California, the city of San Francisco, a relative who works as an undertaker, and he said they had to take the kids to the undertakers, right? When they were doing postmortems on these adolescents, 16, 15, 17, 14, that age group of people who were killed by gun violence. The kids who are becoming recruited into gangs because it's a survival mechanism, and it's obviously culturally associated, right? Those kids were taken. They were vomiting, they were crying, because it looks like there's aggrandizement, because that's all you're taught, right? That you'll be stronger and more powerful than the other gang, and we'll be strong and we'll have more money, and you give more money, I can give you mother, right? Not recognizing that there's a way that you can drop out very easily long before there's any possibility of you becoming rich or famous or just having money, just comfortable, right? And those kids, a lot of them were converts against participating in gang violence. So what are the risks that put us at, what are the things that put us at risk for being involved in violence, or whatever kind of violence? Even we talk about child violence, gender-based violence, man and woman, use of alcohol. Mm-hmm. How many women tell you their husband come home drunk, right? Monday to Friday you work and he's a nice man, and on Friday night and you drunk and you get a paycheck and you sit down by Mr. John shop, right? When you reach home in the night, noise, fight, wake up everybody, come and go and do it, wash your clothes, wear your food, you understand? Where the woman is, he wants to have sex, no, right? All of those kind of stuff. And that's violence to your family, and it creates a lot of psychological trauma for people who grew up in that environment, to the point where they're afraid to talk about it, right? And of course, because these people seem to be, they often can't manage it, we don't even have enough alcoholics and substance abuse and substance rehab programs for them to participate in. So that's another thing. Do we have what is required to mitigate it? And we talked a little about it in the beginning, but can we take care of all of it? Okay? Use of alcohol. What is real and what we perceive to be unequal treatment. We talked about the little boy living it, and maybe he just has already had his way being a role, and because she doesn't want him to go out and play and mix up with other children, she sees the gangs growing up in the community and says, no, you're going to sit down and watch TV and be home. You can play cricket in the yard, but you're not to go on the road. You're not to hang with Tom. They become angry, right? We've seen cases where kids have killed their parents simply because they think their parents are being unfair to them, right? And not necessarily so. So that is perceived. And of course, there are situations where there is actual violence, and inequality of treatment, right? The exposure, the aggrandizement, the make it look like it's really good, right? When something happened, you see it 40,000 times, and it looks like it is right. They put it in the media, and that's a responsibility that media houses have. You might want the people to know that this boy killed his parents, he took up them head. I'm just saying. But you can't put it every day and make it look like it's a soap opera. It's not. Mm-hmm. Once you tell people, and you don't need to go to the police, and the police doesn't need to be saying every day, well, the little boy tied up his mother in the room and he raped her, and then he watched her, he tell her, and he saw his father's neck, right? And tell her she next. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. They give all the graphic expressions. And people like the soap opera because it's not them.
Yeah, it's
okay. People like the soap opera because it's not them, and the media make it look like it's
Very
bigger
sensational.
thing is,
A lot of
man.
sensationalism, yes.
Yes, sensational. We talked about gang association, right? And gang association doesn't have to be with guns, right? Gang association has to just be looking for who's the nicest guy, who dressed, but they are likely to have violent practice and reactions to the person who oppose or compete with them. Whatever it is, whether it's for the girls who go to convent, or the girls who go to high school, or the boys who in sixth form who look good, the boys who are, you understand, and the girls from the thing who can dress the best and all the rest. And we see it a lot in our young people, right? And of course, we know about the gang thing. Accessibility to weapons. Do we actually really have access to the guns that are required for them? Or, well, we have bull pistol,
We ain't bull pistol again. Cutlass and thing, yeah.
Oh, we don't do bull pistol anymore?
Nah, I don't hear about bull pistol anymore.
And soaking the number one for 2 weeks and every day, make sure it can stop.
Yeah,
that's what the guys, right, used to do. I remember as a child, we had a very vibrant community, right? And every time, like how they have carnival, Easter time, they'll have a big dance in a community center for the people, right? And boy, that's so long. I can tell you who's up there. Wakax and the boys and whoever else.
Yes.
You know about Wakax?
Oh yes, definitely.
Wakax is former commissioner father, so long, right? And bands come from Trinidad and have all everybody dancing ska and whatever they dance, right? And the Mongoose gang, notorious Mongoose gang, will come every single time, and mash up the fit. And it's at all day, so people are there, they buy drinks, they buy their children and stuff. But when some start to turn up with a knife, and I don't know if they had guns, but rather be more 38, they come up with the knives and the bull pistol and the sharpened down cutlass, the Cuban as they call it, and all the rest, and mash up the fact. Mash up the community-based event, right? That was just meant to create harmony and relationship groups in the community. And one day the guys waited for them. Never forget. There's a man who used to tune pan, and the government has given him pans to tune for a band. And the pans over on the side. The guys in the community decided this is the last time. And they waited for them. And as I tell you, I remember one guy sharpening the machete, and my grandfather sharpened till the edge looked white. He cutlass. It was meant to plan us, but just in case.
A poya, you call that?
No, the poya is one hook in the end, man.
No.
You don't come from country.
No, well, remember different communities have different names, eh? The poya to me had two sides.
You come from a different country from me.
No, I come from the real country.
Okay, I come from town country, okay?
No, yeah, you come from town country. Town country is a different kind of country.
I talk to my friends who grew up town, they don't know what I talk about, okay? I'm speaking a different thing. But I remember the men being by my grandfather's shop, sharpening their machete and planning. And there are two entrances to my community, one in the east and one in the west. And they blocked them from both sides and beat the daylights out of them. We never had a challenge with Mongoose gang again.
Yeah?
Whatever does a violent act to cure violent behavior, it stopped it.
Mm-hmm.
But this gang always planned intentionally to destroy basic community events. Somebody had to stop it.
And that's a problem, you see, and that's a problem with violence. Violence begets violence, you know, as the good book would say. But Doc, let's just take a short break, and we're going to come back because I know there's a lot to talk about, so much to say, and believe me, the telephone line is going. So we take a short break, and we'll be right back. Stay with us, folks.
It's the 4th edition of Hubbard's Live Free for 1 year promotion. Cuatro Punto Cero. It's unbelievably amazing. You can win free fuel, free drinks, cash prizes, free property and vehicular insurance, free cable, TV and internet, free electricity, free coke, free water, free cooking gas, free paint supplies, free passes to Sunshine Promotion events for 2023, free groceries, all for 1 whole year. And every winner receives a lunch package. Be sure to fill out the entry forms and enter it into the marked entry boxes at all Hubbard's departments and at participating outlets. Promotion runs from April 1st to September 30th, 2023. Draws will be held every 2 weeks. Terms and conditions apply.
Do you have muscular pain that no one can find a solution for? Are you tired of taking meds for joint and other pains? Hills and Valley Medicare Center on Grenville Street, St. George is here to help you heal. We will help you map a path to your full recovery. Visit us Monday to Saturday for a consultation with our on-site doctor, physiotherapist, and massage team. You will be glad you did. Our Medicare Center, a proud member of the Hills and Valley group of companies. On the hilltop or in the valley, we are with you wherever life takes you. Hills and Valley Pharmacy. Your health is our business.
The Ministry of Tourism and Economic Development and the Grenada Tourism Authority extend a warm welcome to visitors and returning nationals visiting for Carnival and summer vacation. We do hope you enjoy your stay with us, and we invite you to return with friends and family to celebrate our 50th anniversary of independence on 7th February 2024. Tourism is my business, your business, our business.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Doctrine Call, and tonight we're looking at violence. Those of you just joining us, and of course, we know the line has been going, so the line is open now, folks. The number is 435-2041. You can give us a call, and we'll try to answer your questions that you have. Just before we go to the phone line, Doc, let's just quickly look at the third subtype, which is collective violence, and that refers to violence committed by larger groups of individuals and can be subdivided into social, political, and economic violence. I think you had described a little bit of it earlier, but that's the whole, that's the gist of it. You know, when you have groups, getting involved. I remember in my community, we had two groups. Ones that was involved in violence. One called a group called the SPACs and the FACs. And, they had this continuous feud until eventually some influential people in the community brought them together, and, they settled the differences and everything. All of this thing just went away.
You know what's the saddest part about that, right? Gang violence, right?
Yeah. When
you ask them, so why you guys start fighting to start with?
But they don't know. They usually don't know. They don't.
I remember the bishop of my community when I lived abroad saying that, these guys, he grew up here, but these guys fighting, right? These gangs, they come from neighboring community, right? Who's nearest to Tivoli? Conference?
Yeah, conference. Uh-huh.
Right. So conference guys and Tivoli guys don't get along, right? Right? So if a conference man rob a Tivoli man car, you ready to pull out his machete and you ready to cuss and fight and fist him down and slash him for tire, whatever it is, right? And so they had a mediation session with these guys, because it doesn't have to be much that incited the recent violent events. And they sat back and they said, what is it that started this 20, 30 years before? Guess what? conference guys.
Yeah.
The conference guys was taking away all the Tivoli girl them. It's something as silly as that. But I want to, in saying that, I want to tell you why this is important, because there's some risk factors that I want us to listen to. There's a few, but listen. Risk factors that cause the continuation, the perpetuation, the penetration of it. So that in the individual factors, and we've spoken of some. History of violent victimization. In other words, you are also a victim of violence, emotional, social, whatever it is, sexual, okay? People who have learned and who have challenges, mental health challenges, like children with attention deficit, hyperactivity disorder, and learning disorders, okay? History of early aggressive use. So you see a child who fights at everything you run. Look out for that child. See how you can help him, because he may be one perpetuating violence on him. Involvement in drugs, use, that is alcohol or tobacco. People with low IQ, because they're not able, low intelligent quotient.
Yeah,
people
they don't have the ability
the ability to rationalize. Everything is directed at their destruction. Or all they can feel is really pain and are unable to express how this affects them emotionally. Poor behavior control, okay? And that could be a challenge from a mental health standpoint. Deficits in social, cognitive, or information processing. It comes together with IQ, but just being able to understand, to formulate thought, right, could be a problem. So you can find old people who, you know how old people behave when they start to have dementia, right? They will be rude, they spit on the thing, they throw stuff after the caregivers, right? They're obnoxious, we think, but it's just that they're not able to think, so they become violent. Or they can't express what they feel, so they express it in the easiest way possible. People who have been treated for emotional problems. And of course, the antisocial behaviors. People who think they're always right, like Donald Trump. I can say that on our TV, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, look at January 6th. January 6th was a major manifestation of violence against an entire nation.
Yeah.
Because what he did was raise a revolt against 382 million people. 42 million people, right? So think about it, right? And people who have been exposed to violence and conflict within their families. And we've spoken about that.
Yeah.
But then what happens in family? People who have authoritarian, child-rearing attitudes. I mean, no, we've seen our children kill their parents or leave them to suffer when they get old as a result. Harsh, lax, or inconsistent. So is that a one, the good one? Very harsh or very lax? They don't have no boundaries for the children. Or inconsistent. One father say a thing, auntie say one thing, granny say one thing. Disciplinary practice. There's no standardized way. So children don't understand right and wrong as they should. Low parental involvement. Do all they want. I don't care. Kill one another. We have patience for the children. Or they're just not there to guide the children to be able to make correct decisions, to deal with the things that seem unfair to them, or to not be unfair to other people. Low parental education and income. So we have other things thinking about. Okay?
Poverty.
Parental substance abuse or criminality. When your father in jail every 6 months, well, I don't feel like my father going to jail 10 times. Okay, there's no example. You don't understand it. It seems to be something big, right? Of course, when you have dysfunctional families where you might live in the same house and when you talk to each other, mommy has her boyfriend, she married to daddy, but dad has his girlfriend, he has other families, she goes when she wants, they cuss every day, 2 days they go 2 days. You don't understand. The children don't grow up with values, okay? And of course, poor monitoring and supervision of children, okay? And then there's the peer and the social association with who you decide to associate with, right? Involvement in gangs, if there's a possibility. And if you become rejected by your peers, children who are rejected, who are bullied and otherwise, eventually can become quite violent, okay? Because now they have to defend themselves. Lack of involvement in conventional activities. Do you go swimming? Do you participate? Go to the parties? Or you go and play cricket and scrimmage and, go to the dance, go down the road where they have the DJ playing in the crossroad. You don't get involved. You keep the children back. They get angry. Poor academic performance creates frustration for children, and low commitment to school and of course failure in school. They're not doing it. What happens in our community? What are the things? Diminished economic opportunities, poverty, diminished opportunities, and you don't necessarily have to be uneducated. right? You don't underestimate that duns, what we call duns children, who can learn. They're just not opportunities, whereas whatever the prejudices are, because you're poor, because you don't have the kind of clothes, because we don't like you, because you're light skin, more light skin than us, or because you're darker than us, because you're hair picky, whatever it is, because you have rotten teeth. It doesn't matter whether you're cocky. How are we going to look at people as we think that they're different, right? We diminish, or they don't support us in our context. Because you don't support my party and not giving you, you're not as good enough. You're not as good as the children of the yellow or the green party, or the children of the yellow or the green party supporters and voters, right? Areas for lots of poor, high concentration of poor people. They're not getting ahead. It lends to gangs, okay? It lends to that kind of formation. High level of transiency. People move a lot. They don't live in one place. You know, they come in and they're gone. Who is that person? They don't know. It creates opportunity for you to do things that are not necessarily very savory in the community. Disruption in your family, whatever that is. Mommy traveling abroad, daddy, to work, daddy gone away, mommy sick, mother dead, father dead, you live in your grandmother not well, she can't take whatever it is. Low level of community participation, isolation from the community. And then when you live in socially disorganized neighborhoods. So those are lots of the factors that will lend to violence. And what we need to do is to listen to them and see, how is my community affected? How is my family affected? And what do I do? Okay? What do I do to make sure that doesn't happen? But this is going to have to be focused on from the top, from a policy standpoint, and trickle down to communities, to the workplace, to families, to community, to little community, your community center, what happened in your local district, and what happened to your family, and then the individual conviction and understanding of why violence is not supposed to be something that is perpetrated against him, or that should emanate from him, that should come out of him.
Right. So folks, the telephone line is now open. You can give us a call. We're taking your calls now. 435-2041. That's the number, and we'll be more than happy to try and answer your questions, and of course hear your comments and all of that. The number again, 435-2041. Let's go to the telephone line. Doctor and call, good evening. Hello. Good evening, caller. Hello.
We lost him.
Okay. Yeah, clearly. All right, so folks, when you're calling, please turn the volume of your device down, whether it's your TV or your radio, and listen to us on your telephone, all right? So the number again, 435-2041. Give us a call, and we'll try our best to answer your questions for you. Doc, I just wanted to share with you a bit the risk factors that you outlined, and I think the WHO, they've done it nicely. In fact, they've broken it down into societal risk factors, community risk factors, relationship, and individual. And
that's the same socio-ecological model, right?
And again, I just want to let you know, folks, that you can go online, use your phone, if you have your computer, internet, whatever, go online onto the WHO website, and you can just look up violence and health, and all the information is there. And it's a good thing to understand it. You see, when you understand it, it puts you in a better position not to get involved, or how to deal with situations that can lead to violent acts, right? And this is what we're trying to avoid, having to get involved in violent acts, because it does impact you in very, very, very serious ways, and not just you. Imagine your father, and you have your family, and you're involved in some violent act where you probably lose a limb or something like that. Then you cannot care for your family, and so much can happen as a result of that. So violence and health, it does affect the health aspect of things in a very significant significant way. So you want to be very, very careful with that. So the number again, 435-2041. You can give us a call, and we'll be happy to answer your questions or whatever comments you have. We'll be happy to listen to them and share it, of course, with the rest of our listeners. Right. So just while we wait, let's just go back a bit. So this last part here, which says cross-cutting each of these categories, and we are talking about self-inflicted, self-directed violence, interpersonal, and collective violence. So when you cross-cut these categories, there are 4 modes in which violence may be inflicted: physical, sexual, and psychological attack and deprivation. And we spoke a bit about that in passing.
Yeah, but you have to put in verbal abuse as a 5th component, huh?
Yeah, the verbal abuse.
Because we do that a lot in Grenada.
Yeah, actually, it's very important, Doc, because a lot of times verbal violence can actually lead to physical violence because words hurt. They do hurt. Let's go back to the telephone. Doctor and call. Good evening.
Good afternoon.
Yes, good evening. Can you? Yeah, we're getting feedback from you, caller. Can you turn the volume of your radio or TV down and talk to us on your phone? Listen to us on your telephone. Yes, please. Yes, caller. Yeah.
I want to find out from the doctor. A few months ago, I fall and I bounced my left shoulder, the ankles in the back where the knuckles is there. And after about 3-4 years, it sounded something like a bump, like a wind ball. I went to the doctor, and the doctor pulled out some fluid in it twice. And from saying that having he gave me he almost blind my left eyesight, and then he gave me a bone in from my left shoulder, go right on to my left foot. Although I can't get no release. I'm taking some capsule, but it's a waste of time.
So hear me, Mr. What's it? Don't tell me your name, Mr. I don't know if your fall is a problem. I think you need to go back to your doctor and get properly investigated, because you sound like you have a bigger problem than that. I'm not even going to call its name. So you need to go back to your doctor. If you're not satisfied with the doctor, you see, find another doctor. But you need to be properly examined and do blood tests and all them kind of stuff, because your problem sounds a little more global than that. Thank you.
Okay, caller? Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, number 435-2041. And remember, folks, now, Doc cannot diagnose you on the telephone. You would have to go into the office, so a proper examination can be done, and then you get a diagnosis. And of course, Dr. Nixon, you would find her at the Bruce Street Mall, so you can go visit there, and she can, definitely do a proper examination, get all the, pertinent information from you, and take it from there. All right, so that's how you're going to get the help you need. All right, the number again, 435-2041. Give us a call, and we'll be more than happy to try and answer your questions. Now, Doc,
you don't have a call. You have a call?
No, not yet.
So, it comes to mind how we adults have perpetuated violent practices among our children. I remember going to primary school, and there was a group of kids, siblings. Two in particular gave a lot of hell in the classroom, a lot of hell in the school grounds, in the classroom, wherever it is, right? And if you were to hit them because they hit you, or if they harass you and you push them over, you tell them something, they will tell you, I'm going to bring my father in school for you. And I've seen that father come off his vehicle and walk into the schoolyard and exert violent practices, physically violent practices, sometimes verbal, chuck, hit, whatever it is, right? Or tell you nasty things. If he knows your parents, he might be able to tell you something that be not necessarily true but hurtful on the children. Or in the other situation where parents tell the children, hit them back.
Yes.
Do this.
Yeah.
Do that. Right? The other thing we have to consider, because we have to look at how violence affects us contextually as Grenadians. The whole issue of bullying, we sit in GSCC, trust me, I'm sure that I was involved in bullying as a child, not to the extreme to put children down, right? But usually because you have the power of your friends, right? And parents have to take on a serious role in ensuring that their children are not bullying other children.
Yep.
That's one of the most destructive things that happens to children, right? Where other children who they expect to be able to be like them friend and be good to them, right? Who not supposed to have power over them because they expect them all to be on the same playing field, are the ones that perpetuate verbal, physical, right, violence on them. So we have to make sure as parents and grandparents and aunties and uncles and nannies and whatever we are, that our children, the children within our, especially the younger children who don't understand, it's not fun. Do not engage in teasing. Do not engage in taking away kids' stuff. Do not engage in bullying in whatever form it is, because that creates a lot of anxiety, fear, learning challenges, and depression. And other things. And we see children having other psychiatric and psychological manifestations as a result of something as simple as bullying. Oftentimes, because we think our children look at angels. Mm-hmm. And a mother who was very vigilant. I went to Heinzie School, okay? And we run up and down the yard, because we love play, okay? We run up and down the yard, and when I look, my mother leaned up on the gate watching me. She worked in the botanical gardens, and those days, and we were close for hours, she leave. And you walk over town or take a bus and come into St. George's. Heinzie School is not in town, it's not near to the bus stop. And she would come and you see Mother Lena. And she'd come and ask our teachers, what were we doing? Were we fighting? Were we doing what? Were we doing what? Parents have to be vigilant, and your child must be guilty until they can be proven innocent. Mm-hmm. Right? We must not be afraid to put the children on the right path for their own good, for their own good sake, right? And when we look at our children's behavior, we need to examine our own behavior. What am I teaching my children?
Yes, very much so.
Let me tell you what bothered me. Again, I want to come back to Monday, Carnival Monday, and that murder. And I don't know, I hope people have been talking about it, not because they want to know who do what and the gossip and all the crap. How has this affected me? And I saw Grenada get into a state of... I tell you, when I woke up and somebody said, I said, the first question I asked, what are these people involved in? Because it didn't seem characteristic of what crime occurs in Grenada. Mm-hmm. And we've heard a lot of stuff. It is fearful. So people have to understand and learn to look out for different types of situations. And the violence will get a little worse as we get more sophisticated, as the world gets tinier, as people have more and more transportation into our space. And the more we remain naive and a nice, easy, quiet place where you could go and play carnival and I don't even need to wear clothes, the more people will use that environment. Because I'll tell you what bothered me about Monday. It happened while we were all distracted, enjoying Juvie. And even the security forces would not have been, maybe they were, I don't know what if they had any intelligence on it, but even they were so focused on keeping us safe from the little petty violence that we have, that this monstrous crime, because there's another state of violence, the criminality of it, okay? This monstrous crime came and really put a damper on people in Grenada. Right? People are still a little sad. Someone say, oh, it happened in St. George's. Oh, it's them people and they're involved with one of them, a friend and blah, 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 and they have money on it. The truth is, this is not good for us mentally and emotionally and even socially. And so I want to go back. Before we can or crime or violence can escalate to that. Every Grenadian need to figure out, how can I prevent violence, right? That's around me, that I participate in, right? That my children might be included in, my family, my cousin, my uncle. How can I prevent it happening at all? How can I prevent escalation to that level of chaos where we emotionally and mentally so hurt and we can't cope? Because I don't think we realize how much this crime has already affected them emotionally. In fact, it has. Because some of us just push it on and say, well, it happened there. Trust me. We love Grenada too much for this to just happen so. I can imagine our leaders, the leaders of our country, the police must be devastated, because I know that the police don't do very well when they have that level of crime to deal with. And I don't know that we've ever had it of this level of high organization and sophistication, because this was very sophisticated, right? We don't need to lose the freedom that we have, but that's an extreme case. What we need to do is to preserve what we have by learning how to identify, how to prevent, how to mitigate, how to control the risks, right, for development of crime, of violence, and eventual criminal violence. Okay? So, simply by, you go to the hospital, for example, and nurse busy. Hey, what do that girl? That's a violent behavior. Girl, I know, me and you go to school together in Tivoli. Yes, you went to school together, but she's a nurse who's busy doing her work currently, and maybe she can't speak to you now, right? I've had people say to me, what I think, right? No, because I think I'm a doctor. No, I don't think I'm a doctor. I do not even think about that, right? But that hurts me when people say that, right? Because I don't have to get involved in every petty thing that people want me to participate in. And sometimes I don't do anything. Hey, what do Sonia Nixon? I know she going to Heinzie school, right? And what's she playing? Because she thinks she's a doctor. That's a violent act towards me. And the same thing for anybody else who's out there who just going about their business. Hey, what she think? You know? And create negativity. We have to change some of our cultural behaviors if we're going to control how we treat each other, and especially if we're going to prevent having violent thoughts, having violent physical practices, and harming people in much more than one way.
You know, Doc, I think on that note, well, we're practically almost out of time, but it's a good note to pause for this evening. And I say pause because we have to continue this discussion. It's an ongoing one. Probably would take about 2 or 3 programs because there's a lot to talk about. But before we just, make our final words, I just wanted to share this. I think it's very important. And the caption is, how big is the problem of interpersonal violence? And it says, globally, around 520,000 people die each year as a result of interpersonal violence. That means approximately 1,400 deaths every day. All right? And the equivalent, and here's how it's put, the equivalent of 3 long-haul commercial aircraft. And when we speak of a long-haul commercial aircraft, we're talking about an aircraft like a 747 or Airbus 300 and things like that. Aircraft that can
fly from here to China.
Exactly, travel very long distances. And so yes, the equivalent of 3 long-haul commercial aircraft crashing every single day, week in, week out, year after year. And let me tell you folks, a long-haul aircraft carries a lot of people. 300-400 people, depending on the model or whatever it is. Yeah.
Also, what a big 757.
Well, there we go. Well, the 747 is a little bit, it's bigger than the 75. In fact, the 75, it's more streamlined and doesn't carry as much as the 747 or the Airbus. But it is important because most victims and the perpetrators of interpersonal violence are between ages 15 and 44 years old. All right? because it so frequently occurs among adolescents and young adults, very high rates of interpersonal violence in societies and communities can effectively cancel out many of the health gains. Now I want to take that again. Because it so frequently occurs among adolescents and young adults, very high rates of interpersonal violence in societies and communities can effectively cancel out many of the health gains achieved through infant and child health programs. And this is where I'm going to stop. So, folks, it is so important to avoid violence in all its forms, whether it be at the beginning with verbal violence and I don't know if we take this lightly, but verbal violence is a very serious. It is the gateway to other forms of violence. So we need to pay very close attention to that. So, Doc, on that note, let me give you a minute to, make your closing remarks and, of course, set the stage for our continuation next week.
So, again, I want to just go back on Carnival, and I want to thank the majority of the Grenadian people that made it a happy space. I want to thank the police, who I know worked very hard to keep Grenada safe in the last few weeks, because it's not just been yesterday, Monday and Tuesday. I want to thank Grenadians. So just focusing on having fun. And still those who are not converts into just having fun, think about it, okay? Just think about it. I want to thank the visitors who came and, put a lot of money, and people who came able to spend time with their families and enjoy what Grenada have. A lot of oil down, a lot of food was made, and a lot of family. And that's also good. That's healthy encounters, okay? And I hope everybody come back next year and twice. I'll move to Caracou so you guys can get space here. But I want to thank everybody, and hopefully we can have just a safer, even safer, less threatened experience with all events, because we're going to have 50th anniversary soon. There is, even when you have Christmas, you have other things, right? Hopefully we can have a safe space.
Yes.
Violence is not just the police business. It becomes a police business when it becomes a crime. So let's keep police out of this and let's start working on ourselves. I think it probably starts with loving your neighbor. Probably that's where it starts, preventing violence. It starts with being tolerant. It starts with making sure there's equality. Equity is what I really want to use. I want to use equality so that more people can understand it. Equity for everybody. So that from a policy and governmental level, opportunities are prepared equally for everybody. Everybody must have access to safe housing, a safe home, parents who are cared, health care, food, the things that don't make you different from other people. And where there's social programs that can help people to live better and to live good lives. And we should have access to education. And we should have access to things like mental and psychological support, education about substances and drugs, and that we can get care for our mental health, the things that put us at risk for violent behaviors. But then we ourselves also must look to see where there are challenges within our families, in ourselves, in our families, in our homes, in our communities, in the workplace, in the bigger society, and make suggestions to our leaders as to how can we improve what it is. Not by cussing. We like to cuss too much and say, why don't I do this? No. Make concrete suggestions. Contribute. Teach the boys, if you have football, get the young boys not to see at risk and put them in a gang of football. Make them kick ball and blow their frustration. Help children to go to school. We have to live as a very integrative community if you're going to have that. You see it lifting its head, speak about it, right? I'm not saying carry news and undermine and put people at risk, but find support and find help so we can fix the problems, okay? The other social stuff that are needed, we call it mediation. It's important that we have mediation. People can feel that they can sit down. You know, there's a part in the Bible that says, if you and your friend, if me and you have a problem, right? I should call and say, hey, Godfrey, what you do? I don't like what you do to me, right? And you should be saying, no, that's not what I meant. I must give you an opportunity to explain yourself, and we must work it out. You don't work out, we call what's your name? Janelle, and somebody else in the studio, right? And we talk about it. You don't work out to them, we go further, all right? But we have to find ways to mediate, to sit down and understand, because we're all very different. Right? All 9 billion of individuals with different views, different personal experiences, different desires, different ways to get into where we want to go, right? And different things that keep us from getting to what we think we need, right? So find a way how we solve problems before we take it into our own hands, because it can mean that we'll be practicing violent behavior, especially with vex. The Jamaicans say mustn't eat rice while it's hot. You know that, right? No. Don't eat rice while it's hot, because you have to make it cool down a little bit. Right? My father used to say, me, I don't drink my tea cold. So I guess he wait for his tea to get cold. The bottom line is wait. There's no need to respond to it right now. There's no need to respond to a difference of opinion, a difference of desire, a difference of anything right now. You know, I wish our structured organizations like the church will be a part of violence mitigation, preventing violence. We lock up the church and everybody have AC these days and lock the door. No, open, go to the street, go to the highways and byways and see where the problems are, why things are happening the way they're happening. Don't stand on the pulpit and criticize, because we never know what somebody's experiencing and that lets them behave the way they do. We have to practice. Love is a practical sport, you have to go there and really practice it. Okay? And as we all grow together, we will surely keep down the rate of violence. We'll understand, because trust me, we have problems with violence. It's just that we don't have very serious violence, right? So that people are, we have like what happened in Egmont and what has happened with the young man on the beach and other people, the guy who chopped his wife. We do have problems. And when we look at 16, it's only 2/3 of the year gone, and we've already had 16 murders, which is the ultimate experience. We've seen violence against self in the people who have died by suicide, who have caused self-harm. Other people who have caused self-harm may not have died, right? Those are violent acts against themselves. We have to find a way to support people and to recognize when people have challenges, not criticize them, because guess what? All of us have something that makes us come short of God's glory at some stage. We all have needs. What we have to do is be each other's brother and try and solve the problems that we all have. Yeah. Because this violence thing is going to grow. I live in a community, like I tell you, and then I ended up having the worst experience. See my friends killed, people who are very, very close to me killed, in an environment that we can sleep with a door open. In the state of 2 days, and I tell the police, guys, be careful, be zero tolerant to some of the behaviors, make sure you have rehabilitation, right? Because I watch it deteriorate daily. We're going to have to decide how we're going to prevent Grenada from becoming a violent environment, because this doesn't sit well with any one of us. We all stand to lose.
Yes, indeed.
We'll talk about this further.
Yeah, indeed. Well, thank you very much, Doc. Folks, I really hope you paid attention and at least there was one thing that you can take away from the program this evening. We will continue next week on this very same topic, because there's a lot of information that we'd like to share with you, and we will. So be sure to join us next Tuesday for another episode of Doctrine Call. Tomorrow we have cricket action from 7, so you can join us. The CPL continues tomorrow. The St. Kitts and the Nevis Patriots, they take on the Jamaica Talawas. That game starts at 7 p.m. and so our evening news will be brought forward to 6 o'clock. So evening news continues at 6 p.m. and the CPL game, the Patriots take on the Talawas from 7. All right. Of course, the World Championship continues. I think Thursday, Kirani James will contest in the finals of the 400 meters, and on Friday, I think Anderson Peters will be in the javelin. So there's a lot of action on GBN television. We got cricket, we've got track and field, and of course, we got a lot of information to share with you. So do take care, enjoy the rest of the evening. Have a good night. All the best. The Doctor and Call was brought to you with the kind compliments of Hills and Valley Pharmacy and Spice Isle Imaging Center.